Oh, hello. Happy Friday. Let's see. Okay, that works. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. We'll let people fall in as they will. Let me adjust a little bit. Okay. Cool. All right. Hopefully, everyone had a really good week. I did. I'm also glad it's over. It's really hot here. Really humid, so I'm actually excited for the beginning of fall big time. Okay. I think my sound is okay. Let's play with. Hello, thank you for joining. Does that help a little bit? That's a little bit better. Cool. I'll get started in about 2 minutes. I'll get started. Hello, thank you for joining. Hi. I will get started in just a few minutes. I'm just letting people fall in as they will. Happy Friday, everyone. Yay! My day is very good. And it's just gonna keep getting better. It's a really good day. How was your day? Sorry, my nose is itchy. I feel like I have allergies or something. Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'll get started in just a minute. There's good stuff today. I feel like there's a lot of interesting stories. Just got off work 15 hours, but it's good. Whoa, 15-hour shift. Well, hopefully you're relaxing now. That's a long shift. Okay. Hello. All right, I was going to get started with beer. That makes sense. I was going to get started with Ron DeSantis again. And then going to Greg Abbott. That is a long shift, man. Hi, Danielle. How are you? Okay, let's talk about what Ron DeSantis is doing. Again in Florida, he keeps, and I'm reading from the AP, so bear with me. We talked about Ron DeSantis yesterday. Hi, Patsy. We talked about Ron DeSantis yesterday, and today he was sort of making headlines again. And one of the things we've also talked a lot about are a lot of these super progressive, soft on crime, Soros backed DAs. And there has been a backlash against a lot of these people, specifically in California. You had Chesa Boudin, who was just recalled in San Francisco. And then you have a recall that's happening with George Gascon, who is the DA in Los Angeles. Now, George Gascon's, they got enough signatures, so his is at the county registrar's office, and they are verifying the signatures. So we'll see what happens with that. But this just happened in Florida with Ron DeSantis. So it says Florida Governor Ron DeSantis suspended the elected state prosecutor of Tampa on Thursday for pledging not to enforce this state's new 15-week abortion ban and for supporting gender transition treatments for minors. The Republican governor announced the suspension of Hillsborough County State Attorney Andrew Warren at a news conference in the county sheriff's office. Ron DeSantis said, "When you flagrantly violate your oath of office, when you make yourself above the law, you have violated your duty, you have neglected your duty, and you are displaying a lack of competence to be able to perform those duties." DeSantis said to Cheers. So I actually watched this, and he did get a lot of applause because of this. It goes on to say the suspension comes as DeSantis runs for re-election in Florida and builds his national profile as potential 2024 Republican presidential candidate through near constant criticism of liberal policies on abortion, policing, and other culture wars issued. Warren, a Democrat, was elected as state attorney by Hillsborough County voters in 2016 and in 2020. In a statement, Warren said the people have a right to elect their own leaders, not have them dictated by an aspiring presidential candidate who has shown time and time again he feels accountable to no one. Wow. Well, okay, hold on, let me continue this. The governor is trying to overthrow the results of a fair and free election, 2 of them actually. He said later Thursday at a news conference, people need to understand this isn't the governor trying to suspend one elected official. This is the governor trying to overthrow democracy here in Hillsborough County. See, that's where I completely disagree with this attorney. No, because what you have happening and what's been happening with a lot of these very progressive district attorneys and attorneys is they are supposed to act as prosecutor. They are in the judicial branch, not the legislative branch. Yes, they are elected, but their job as an elected official is to uphold what's already in the Constitution. Their job is not to make laws. Their job is to prosecute in accordance with laws that are already there. They can have discretion as far as the prosecution goes or things like that. They have discretion as far as which case is more important than this one and as far as things like that. But they don't have discretion when it comes to deciding whether something is a law or not. That's the legislative branch. They don't get the opportunity to legislate. And that's what Ron DeSantis was talking about. He can't just say, I'm not going to prosecute a whole swath of crimes because I don't agree with that. You can't do that. If you want to change the laws, then you become an elected official in the legislative branch. And that's what's happening with a lot of our super progressive DAs. For instance, Los Angeles. And on the ballot in 2020, the voters of California as a whole voted that they did not want to end cash bail. So that was strict down. The voters said, we don't want to end cash bail. We, in fact, want cash bail. George Gascon's first day in office, what did he do in Los Angeles County? He eliminated cash bail. So that's kind of an example of you see where the voters are on a whole. Yes, it's all of California and it's just Los Angeles County, but still. So you had the voters of California saying they did not want to end cash bail. And then as soon as George Gascon gets in, he ends cash bail. That to me is an example of someone that's not really ruling for the people, is ruling for their own ideology. So what this guy is saying, Andrew Warren, I don't agree with at all. I think this is what he's saying to make it seem like it's bigger than what it is and make it seem like he's innocent. He's one of the ones that came out. And what's really interesting too is, okay, so Florida has a 15-week ban. Does he know that even if you go in Europe, that 15-week ban is still a lot more progressive than a lot of countries in Europe? And what is 15 weeks? That's the first trimester, right? So again, you have this prosecutor that's actually going against the will of the people because we know the numbers now. 80% of people, I would actually even argue that it's more than that, although we'll be safe. About 80% of people even people that are pro-choice, don't think abortion should be legal past the first trimester. They do think that there should be restrictions on abortion. So who is he pandering to? He's pandering to a minority of far leftists. He's not pandering to the majority of the people because the majority of the people actually agree with Ron DeSantis. Warren added that no cases regarding violations of the state's new abortion law have been brought to his office. In an executive order formally suspending Warren, DeSantis focused heavily on Warren's signing of statements where prosecutors from across the country said they won't use their offices to pursue criminal cases against seekers or providers of abortion or gender transition treatments. More than 90 district attorneys, state attorneys, general, and other elected prosecutors across the U.S. have signed a letter saying that they don't intend to prosecute people for seeking, providing, or supporting abortions. Again, and all this is political pandering and a virtue signal. Because again, 15-week, that's first trimester, right? First 3 months. A little more than that, but that's essentially the first trimester, which is what most people think is appropriate and no more than that. So this these district attorneys that are signing these letters, maybe some of them are a little bit more restricted in their states, but this is just a clear virtue signal. Some are in states with few or no restrictions on abortion, but others are in law enforcement and places where there are bans or deep restrictions, including the counties that include Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, along with several of Texas's biggest cities. In some cases, there might not be so much to enforce because many clinics have either stopped offering abortions or have closed entirely. Besides the statements from prosecutors, city councils in places including Nashville, New Orleans, and Boise, Idaho, have introduced or abandoned measures telling law enforcement agencies to make abortion-related cases low priorities. So again, like, to me, this is just a big virtue signal by all of these individuals, and that's all it is. But not just that, actually, Andrew Warren, so like it said, he was reelected, but he was also one of those prosecutors that refused to prosecute any of the BLM rioters. So rioters that were doing bad things that were arrested were not prosecuted under Andrew Warren. So again, this is somebody that's clearly politically and ideologically motivated and not fair amongst everyone. And someone like that really should not be a prosecutor. That's actually quite scary to know that if you have this political affiliation and you go and do bad things, you're probably going to be okay. But if you have this political affiliation and you maybe are expressing your freedom of speech or something like that, it's not going to be okay. A politically motivated prosecutor should not be in office, and we have way too many of those right now. You should be completely objective and ruling in accordance to the rule of law, and that's what Ron DeSantis is saying. So I think it's totally appropriate, and I think it's good, and I'm glad that someone like Ron DeSantis is taking a stand and saying, no, this is not okay. And I wish that most people or more politicians would take a stand. And Ron DeSantis is actually able to do this because in the Constitution in Florida, he does have that right. He can veto and go ahead and suspend an attorney that he feels like is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And it seems like this has been sort of a long time coming. All right. So this next story, we are actually going to a different governor now. We're going to Texas. I think you'll find this pretty funny. So Governor Greg Abbott in Texas has been in the news a lot recently because of his everyone actually thought it was a stunt in the beginning, even I did. But it only took about 2 months for the mayor of Washington, D.C. and the mayor of New York City to cry uncle. It took 2 months. So let's get into this story. Because Greg Abbott, Texas, border city. Obviously, our borders are wide open under the Biden administration. Thank you very much. Well, anyway, a lot of their smaller border towns and just the state in general have been completely overrun with thousands and thousands of migrants coming over the border every single day due to Biden's policies. He didn't know what to do. He's been asking for federal help. It has not been coming. The Biden administration has been flying migrants all over the U.S. anyway. So Governor Greg Abbott said, you know what, we're going to start a program and we're going to ask people, do you want to go to Washington, D.C.? Do you want to go to New York? And if they do, guess what? They can get on a bus and go there. You know, New York and Washington, D.C., they're sanctuary cities. Both of those mayors are very pro open borders. So they obviously would want them, right? Well, he started sending buses up there. I believe Washington, D.C. only had about 4,000 total in that 2 months. 4,000 migrants come to their city. And then all of a sudden, Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., gets on TV and she's like, whoa, we need federal help. We need National Guard. We cannot handle this. This is unsustainable. These migrants are being tricked by Greg Abbott to come to Washington, D.C. This isn't their final destination, and we can't handle this. Our homeless shelters are overrun. And Greg Abbott is like, well, maybe you should come to the border. And, you know, our small towns with populations of just thousands of people have been dealing with this since Biden took office and have been asking for help. Imagine how these small towns with far fewer resources than DC or New York City are dealing with all of this. Imagine that. This has been happening for a while. So, if you would like to come to Texas, if you would like to come to the southern border and see what's happening, I invite you to do so. And he goes on to say, like, I agree. It is a problem. But here's where I can never say her name correctly, Muriel Bowser, this is what she exposed about herself. That was one of the biggest, most transparent, not in my backyard displays that I have ever seen when she got on TV saying that she can't deal with this. So Miss Bowser, where are they supposed to go? Where are they going to go? You're a city like any other city. Why is yours any different than anywhere else? You know, thousands upon thousands of people are coming over the border every single day. Where do you think they're going to end up? Where do you think they're going to go? And aren't you a sanctuary city? Am I wrong? Let me just double check that. Is DC a sanctuary city? Okay, yeah. November 14th, 2016, today, Mayor Bowser issued a following statement. Ooh, let's read this. Yeah, put your money where your mouth is. You said you were a sanctuary city, so we're treating you like a sanctuary city. Okay, so this is a statement by Mayor Bowser, November 14th, 2016. The values, laws, and policies of Washington, D.C. did not change on Election Day. We celebrate our diversity and respect all D.C. residents no matter their immigration status. We are a sanctuary city because we know that our neighborhoods are safer and stronger when no one is afraid to call on our government for help and when our police can focus on protecting and serving. So this is her reaffirming that DC is a sanctuary city. Maybe someone should read back her statement. I don't know. But this is pretty funny. So this came out today in the New York Post. Here we go. Texas Governor Greg Abbott's office vowed Friday, that's today, to send even more busloads of border crossers to the Big Apple as the Lone Star State continues to grapple with the ongoing migrant crisis. The Republican governor said that Port Authority Bus Terminal in Midtown Manhattan would be a drop-off spot going forward after the first busload from the border arrived in the city Friday morning. Over 50 migrants were bused to New York City this morning from the southern border in Texas, Abbott said in a statement. This is now a drop-off location for our own ongoing busing strategy. Abbott has already dispatched dozens of buses filled with more than 6,000 migrants to Washington, D.C. since April. He vowed to continue to charter buses to both New York and the nation's capital as his state struggles to deal with the unprecedented number of migrants illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. Because of President Biden's continued refusal to acknowledge the crisis caused by his open border policies, the state of Texas had to take unprecedented action to keep our community safe, Abbott said, announcing the arrival of the bus at Port Authority Gate 14. In addition to Washington, D.C., New York City is the ideal destination for these migrants who can receive the abundance of city services and house. This is Eric Adams. No, he's right. Greg Abbott is right. This is exactly what Eric Adams said. This is why it's so funny. Because Eric Adams did say this stuff. We're going to give you schooling and all of these things. New York City is a sanctuary city. Okay, you're the one that said you're a sanctuary city. That was you. Again, that just goes to show that they're all pandering. They don't actually think about the outcome of these policies. They just do whatever pandering they need to do to be the opposite of Republicans or to be the virtue signaling hero leaders. It's like Instagram versus reality with a lot of these mayors. They don't want to deal with reality. They just want to live in Instagram world where they can say, where they can support the current thing. That's it. They want to live in an Instagram false reality where they just say the current thing and they are a glorified political hero. That's what they want to do, but they don't want to actually deal with reality. So this is what Eric Adams wants to live in Instagram. In addition to Washington, D.C., New York City is the ideal destination for these migrants who can receive the abundance of city services and housing that Mayor Eric Adams has boasted about within the sanctuary city. I hope he follows through on his promises of welcoming all migrants with open arms so that our overrun and overwhelmed border towns can find relief. He's right. Adams, who has already warned that New York City's homeless shelters are being overrun by migrants, turned down Abbott's invitation to visit the border earlier this week to see the dire situation firsthand. Abbott told Fox News' Jesse Waters Thursday night that he wished Adams and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser would reconsider his offer. They do need to realize the magnitude of the chaos created by Biden's open border policies, Abbott said. They're up in arms about a few thousand people coming into their communities over the past few months. Listen, in any one sector of the state of Texas, we have more than 5,000 people crossing the border in that sector every single day. We're full in the state of Texas, Abbott said. Our communities are overrun, and I started busing people to Washington, D.C. when local officials could not handle the number of people that had come across the border. Exactly. Okay, Eric Adams, where do you suggest they go? Okay, Muriel Bowser, where do you suggest they go? Should you suggest that a governor and a state that, by the way, that governor and that state are against open borders, they vote against that stuff, they just happen to be geographically unfortunate that they are the one that gets the brunt of people they don't agree with being in office and implementing policies that they don't like and they don't agree with? They didn't declare themselves a sanctuary state or sanctuary cities or any of those things. Maybe Austin, I don't know. Maybe Austin, Texas has. They probably have. But where do you suggest they go? Yeah, they stated keep them in Texas. Okay, so what happens when Texas is getting overrun like it is right now? It goes back to Thomas. You can't be a welfare state and have open borders. Like you can't just make. DC has plenty of bridges to sleep under. It was actually real. I was talking to somebody that lives in San Diego, and were telling me that they were seeing a lot of migrants sleeping under bridges. I'm not even joking, in San Diego. All right. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed that they did not take up his offer to come and visit the southern border. You would think they would. But again, he called their bluff. He called their bluff. You can't declare yourself a sanctuary city and then when you're treated as a sanctuary city. Okay, so this story, this is about, I'm switching gears again. Again, this is the New York Post, and I think we briefly talked about this the other month. And this is about a trans prisoner who was moved to a women's facility and got a woman pregnant. So we're going to talk about that. And before I talk about stuff like this, there are people who actually experience gender dysphoria. There are people who are trans, and I have no issue with that. That's, you do what you do. But what is happening and what we're seeing with a lot of these policies that are focused on gender identity instead of biological sex, a lot of these policies are opening up loopholes for bad actors to take advantage of these things. And one of these things is, I know California, I know Washington State, I know New Jersey. I'm sure there's probably a few more, maybe Colorado, I don't know. I'm not positive about Colorado, but for sure, Washington State, California, and New Jersey, they allow for state prisons to recognize, Michigan, okay. They allow for state prisons to recognize gender identity as opposed to biological sex. So if you are a man, even if you have all of your man parts, you can identify as a woman and be transferred to a women's prison. What's alarming about this, besides the obvious, is that most women in prison are not violent felons. In fact, a lot of them are victims of sexual crimes and committed other crimes, and that's why they're in. So a lot of these women have lived a life of crime because they originated as victims of violent crime. I'm sure a lot of men have, but most of the women in prisons, they're not violent criminals. They've committed other sort of crimes, as opposed to men's prisons. And obviously, just the difference between male and female, I don't think that's hard to fathom. So in a male prison, most of them have probably committed violent crimes. So that's another thing. You already seen instances where violent criminals who have committed crimes against children and women are identifying as women and being transferred to women's prisons. And this is, in my opinion, a situation where this is a person who is mentally unwell, taking advantage of these situations. So this happened in New Jersey, and this person's foster mom is actually speaking out. So, trans prisoner who impregnated 2 female inmates is a psychopath, foster mom says. Okay, so he impregnated 2 female prisoners. Depending on who you ask, the 27-year-old inmate who impregnated 2 women in a New Jersey prison earlier this year is either a martyr to the transgender cause or a cold-blooded killer who got involved in a messy love triangle behind bars. Demi Minor, a troubled foster kid they called Demetrius, had a record for burglaries and at least one carjacking at gunpoint before brutally stabbing foster father Theodis Ted in 27 times. Whoa, okay, so Demi Minor, a troubled foster kid they called Demetrius, had a record for burglaries and at least one carjacking at gunpoint before brutally stabbing foster father Theodis Ted 27 times in 2011 at the age of 16. It was the worst murder scene I have ever seen. Brad Wertheimer, one of Minor's defense lawyers in 2011, told the Post. There was blood everywhere. The community was outraged. The foster dad was considered a great guy, an angel. You do have to be an angel and a great person to be a foster parent, in my opinion. I know there are some bad ones out there, but there are really good ones out there. But Demetrius is now Demi, a transgender woman activist fighting to be returned to a woman's prison after being removed from the state's lone facility for females in June when it was discovered that she had impregnated 2 other inmates. She was sent to a lockup where she was the only person identifying as female. Her legal team is fighting for her transfer under a new and controversial state policy, enabling inmates to be housed according to their preferred gender identity. Demi is now an advocate. I'm just reading the paper. Demi is now an advocate for juvenile justice with an elaborate social media presence and a team of advocates who've backed her since 2020. She's a force to be reckoned with, a triumph. Her new lawyer, Derek Demiri, an advocate for the LGBTQ community, told the Post, I admire her ability to navigate the system. She's pretty level-headed and has risen above a lot. Level-headed. I don't know if that's the term. Just knowing what I know, I don't know if that's the term that I would describe an individual who committed all of these crimes and impregnated 2 people while in prison. But Minor's former foster mother, Dr. Wanda Broach, whose husband was slain by Minor, said she believes Minor is a manipulative psychopath using transgenderism as a ruse to get special treatment and attention in jail. So she said she worries for the female inmates if Minor is returned to the woman's prison. Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to point out. Are there people who are transgender? Of course. Are there people who suffer gender dysphoria? Of course there are. And what bothers me is that, and most of those individuals, they just want to blend in. They don't want any special treatment or special attention. They just want to blend. They want to live their lives. They want to be left alone. They want to leave you. Like, they just want to live their lives and blend. Like, this situation to me is one person who is a crazy person who is using this to get exactly what the foster mom said, special attention, treatment. I think all this about him being transgender is a ploy, she told the Post. He's manipulating people to get a better situation for himself and to get attention. He's learned the language to use. He's dangerous and he's a psychopath. She goes on to say, the Post goes on to say, Minor, who's serving a 30-year sentence for manslaughter and carjacking, was moved 2 months ago from the Adina Mahan Correctional Facility for Women to the Garden State Youth Correctional Facility, a prison for young adults in Burlington County, according to a New Jersey Department of Corrections spokesperson. State prison policy forbids sex between inmates. Okay. That doesn't mean anything, clearly. So now Demetrius, or Demi, is in a youth correctional facility and is 27 years old. And again, what really bothers me, I know there's a huge lawsuit actually going on. Is it better now? Do you think he can float or swim? Actually, California, there is a lawsuit going on. I think it might be against Washington State or California, but there are people fighting back. There's actually a group of radical feminists that are suing. Oh, is there a mic issue? Because I'm trying to figure it out. Is it happening right now? Well, I don't know what to tell you all. I don't know. Oh, it should be okay right now. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, there is a lawsuit happening in California, and California and Washington, or maybe it's just Washington. I don't know, but there is a lawsuit going on where they're suing the state and they're trying to get rid of gender identity, having that be the rule. And I don't understand. This is what's wild to me about what's happening in the prisons. I don't understand how this isn't cruel and unusual punishment, because in states like Washington and states like California, you have women who are complaining and they're being told that they're being silenced. You already have men that are coming into their areas and making them feel unsafe. And again, just like what's happening in sports, what happened with Leah Thomas, they're being told to be quiet. that they don't really get a voice, they don't really get a say. And in some of these instances, they're being forced to shower and have men there with their parts in the shower. How is that not cruel and unusual? Okay, so it goes on to say, but Demetrius is now Demi, a transgender woman activist fighting to be returned to a women's prison after being removed from the state's lone facility for females in June when it was discovered that she had impregnated 2 other inmates. She was sent to a lockup where she is the only person identifying as female. Her legal team is fighting for her transfer under a new and controversial state policy enabling inmates to be housed according to their preferred gender identity. Okay, I just read that. The 2 women's pregnancies were discovered in April after other inmates at the prison sent letters to several media outlets complaining about the housing of pre-op transgender prisoners at the facility. Minor was one of about 27. Why is the number 27 keep coming back? Did you notice the number 27 was in this article 3 times now? Demi is 27 years old. Stabbed the foster father 27 times, and now he was one of 27 transgender inmates that first moved to the women's facility after a new gender self-ID policy was enacted in New Jersey last year. Isn't that weird? 3 times in the same article, this number came up. Let me read that again. I'm sorry, because I wanted to. But, okay, so as soon as they made this policy, 27 inmates identified as a female. Really? Really? What have we been told? That if you're transgender, that's what, about 0.1%, 0.01% of the population? And now just what? Yeah, within a year, 27 inmates. I know in California, I think it's a few hundred in California. The 2 women's pregnancies were discovered in April after other inmates at the women's facility sent letters to several social media outlets complaining about the housing of pre-op transgender prisoners in the facility. Minor was one of about 27 transgender inmates first moved to the women's facility after the new gender self-ID policy was enacted in New Jersey last year. The policy was sponsored by the ACLU along with Garden State Equality, which is openly financed in part by George Soros' Open Society Foundation. Minor's attorney Demiri used to work for the ACLU as well as Red Umbrella Alliance, an advocacy group for sex workers that is partially funded by Soros, and wouldn't confirm whether or not he is working for Minor pro bono. Minor is now in a vulnerable housing until the youth facility where she is the only woman and has extra protection. Is she the only woman? Anyway, I'm just reading. It was initially reported by DOC officials that Minor had impregnated 2 inmates after engaging in consensual sexual relationships at the women's facility. One of the women is Latonia Bellamy, a convicted double murderer, who is in a relationship with Minor and due to give birth this fall. She was convicted along with her female cousin and 1 man in the carjacking-related homicides of newly engaged couple in Jersey City in 2010. Whoa! It's funny because I told you that most female, I told you at the beginning that most female inmates are not violent criminals, and then that was the one that's actually a violent criminal. But all in all, as a whole, most female inmates are not violent criminals. Dimitri told the Post this week that the other relationship was coerced on minor. One was absolutely consensual, said Demiri, but the other case, Demi was a victim of coercion. Demiri said that the second woman, who was jealous of Bellamy, snuck into Minor's cell and threatened her into having, things. Even so, Demi doesn't classify it as the R word. The Department of Corrections knew it was totally consensual. Whatever. In addition to Demiri, Minor's other supporters include a notorious former professor at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Mike Isaacson, who identifies as a member of Antifa, co-founded the anti-white supremacy group Smash Racism in Washington, D.C., and once referred to dead police officers as pig death stats. I'm in the South VA, storms on the way. Yeah, I think we're about to get storms. That's what's been really frustrating all week. It's been super hot. Am I back? Yeah, it's been, this whole week, it's been super hot, super humid. It's rained every day, which usually cools it down, and it will in the moment. But then when the rain stops, it's just disgustingly humid. But yeah, we've had really bad weather, or just really crazy weather all week, and welcome to the weather. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry about that. I'm glad I was able to come back. I was a little worried about that one. It wasn't letting me get back on. You missed me for 73 seconds. That was your intermission. I hope you got popcorn. Just kidding. Well, that wasn't fun. I'm glad it let me come back, though. Summertime. Yeah, summertime. Yep. Okay, I don't want to talk about Dimitri or Demi anymore. Every time I read those stories, it just makes me feel icky. Blech. Yeah, pass on that. It got me kicked off. Maybe it did. I don't think so. I think it might have been the weather around here. Or anything for that matter. It could have been anything. Okay. Why is Los Angeles trending? That's never good. Oh, you know why Los Angeles is trending? I think it's because this crazy car accident. Did you see the interview with our governor yesterday? Which governor is yours? I will say I love summer rain too. Okay, this is why there was a major crash. Oh, Abbott. Glenn Youngkin. No, I didn't. We can look at that in just a minute. There was a massive crash in Los Angeles. That's why it's trending. I forgot that I was seeing. Yeah, it was a car accident. So 3 adults and an infant were killed in a crash/explosion at La Brea Ave and Slauson Ave in Windsor Hills, Los Angeles. I know where La Brea is, but I don't know that part of La Brea. A witness says it started when the driver of a Mercedes traveling about 100 miles per hour caused a collision involving at least 5 vehicles. One of the victims was pregnant. So this car, apparently in the middle of the day, 1 p.m., going up to, someone saying 70 or 80 miles per hour. This one said about 100 miles per hour. I don't know, but went right through an intersection. It was so bad. And I saw the overhead view of the accident. And what I originally thought happened was that it was a street takeover. A street takeover is like when a bunch of teenagers or a bunch of people, they like block off an intersection and they start doing a bunch of like wheelies and like spinning in circles, and they're like playing music, and it's kind of a party. But that is what there are so many tire marks in the middle of the intersection. I thought this was an accident as a result of a street takeover, but it wasn't. Oh, yes. And 2 people got struck. This is insane. Okay. Two people in Washington, D.C., I believe it was an elderly couple, got. And by the way, where I am, I'm about 2 hours away from Washington, D.C., so we kind of share storms a little bit. An elderly couple died outside of the White House from being struck by lightning. This happened yesterday. We have packs of kids on dirt bikes taking over highways here. I believe it. Yeah, DC police have confirmed an elderly couple from Wisconsin has died after 4 people, were struck by lightning Thursday evening near the White House. James Mueller, 76, and Donna Mueller, 75, of Janesville, Wisconsin, died of their injuries after the lightning strike in Lafayette Park, located directly outside the White House complex in the Metropolitan Police Department said. The other 2 people, a man and a woman, were in critical condition. The police department said their identities had not yet immediately been released. Members of the U.S. Park Police and Secret Service were the first to witness the lightning strike at the park located at the 1600 block of Pennsylvania Ave. They said they immediately notified DC Fire and EMS. Wow. It happened. Okay, so they received the call out at about 6:52 p.m. Why don't they report all their car accidents? Okay, so it hit 4 people, and 2 of them are no longer here. Oh, wow. So, okay. So back to Los Angeles. A 6th person has died from a fiery crash on La Brea and Slauson Avenue in Los Angeles. Confirms it found a 6th body in the charred remains of a car that was struck by a speeding driver and burst into flames. I want to know if the driver was intoxicated. To be going that fast. And I've always jokingly said that you can't even speed in Los Angeles if you wanted to, because there's so much stop and go traffic. I don't even understand how this person was going that fast. There's so much traffic everywhere. There's like pedestrians, there's lights everywhere. I don't even know how a person could go that fast. One of the people that passed away was a mom with who was pregnant. Unless the acceleration pedal stuck on the run, it could be, but I don't know. I didn't see anything about a police chase. Yeah, so security footage from the multi-accident on La Brea Windsor Hills this afternoon. That car must have been doing about 100 miles per hour when it blew the red light. A very sad situation for all involved. Wow. Wow. That's really sad. Speeding 100 miles per hour on city streets should be an enforced felony and a car can be a weapon. Also, it's not freedom to willingly endanger others. Yeah, I want to know how and why this person was going 100 miles per hour. I used to joke with my mom about that because I'm like, driving in LA is so frustrating because I want to go faster and I can't go faster. Just goes to show life is fragile and short. Yeah. And this was like 1 p.m. in the afternoon, 1:30 p.m. Very sad. Yeah. There was a car. Let's see. It was New Mexico. Okay, SUV in New Mexico drives through parade, injures 7 people. Thankfully, I don't think anyone has been killed. I'll tell you what though, like just for everyone, just be careful out there. I really do feel like a lot of people I know like the types of things that I cover, like of course I'm a little bit more entrenched on like bad things or corrupt things that people do, but I do have this sense that a lot of people are struggling mentally right now. And just be careful out there is all I'm saying. Just be careful because I read even and I'm putting random things together, but I feel like we're seeing more and more of these just really odd attacks by people, and we've seen like mass shootings and stuff like that before, but these just odd mass attacks. And even that story I read the other day about Starbucks, I've been reading this in several places where it's not just, we talk about this heightened crime in a lot of Democrat run cities, right? And the businesses that are shutting down and the prosecutors who don't prosecute and all of that. But I think there's something else going on too. And I've seen a bit of a trend just across all of the research on different things. I've seen a bit of a trend. And the trend is that even just people, even what I would say like regular people, right? Like people that aren't experiencing homelessness, that don't appear to be experiencing a severe mental illness or are not addicted to drugs, just people. I've seen that regular people are becoming more and more combative and agitated and harder to deal with. I don't know if you remember that story of one of the Starbucks that's shutting down. They One of the things they said, yeah, we're experiencing a lot of issues because of homelessness and mental illness and drugs. And they said, but we're also experiencing a lot of issues just from our regular customers that are just more and more irate and becoming more and more entitled and more combative. And I've sort of been seeing this amongst a lot of people. And I don't know if it's coming out of the pandemic. I actually do think that year, or really 2 years, I think that probably did affect a lot of people and even us in ways that maybe aren't always so obvious. I think maybe this hyper tense political climate that we have is has something to do with it. I think there's just a lot going on right now. So be careful is what I'm saying. Like Revelations, like it really does. Revelations 6 4. Read it. Okay. But I feel like there is something like, I know that sounds a little crazy, but I do feel like there's something spiritual going on, and a lot of people are in a big like unrest. Like things are not okay, or they're angry, or they're agitated, or they're frustrated. And yes, oops. So be careful out there. I don't know. This story about the SUV made me think of that. It's on security camera, but it's charged, but is charged anyway. Okay, so multiple people were injured in a vehicle drive-through. Oh, multiple people were injured after a vehicle drove through a ceremonial parade in Gallup, New Mexico on Thursday. Social media footage captured a brown SUV weaving through the annual Intertribal Indian Ceremonial Parade, one of New Mexico's longest running events. There's a lot of Native Americans in New Mexico. 2 Gallup Police Department officers were among the injured and were treated for their injuries. According to this local news station, the driver traveled down the parade route in the wrong direction. The outlet reports 2 other individuals were inside the SUV. So there were 3 people in this SUV. The driver of the SUV has been taken into custody. Officers detained the 2 passengers while the parade attendees shouted angrily and confronted the trio. Good. NMSP is investigating the incident involving multiple pedestrians at the Gallup International Ceremonial Centennial celebration. Multiple people, including 2 Gallup PD officers, injured and being treated on the scene. The driver's in custody. More information available soon. Wow. So this was the Gallup, Intertribal. I don't know if I said that at first. The Gallup Intertribal Ceremonial is a 10-day celebration consisting of in-person and virtual events. The city celebrated its 100th anniversary of the annual event this year, while the parade culminated in the first night's festivities. Racial, probably? I don't know. I don't know if it is. Is this the person? Multiple injuries. I don't know who the person is, so I can't. And then the more and more, we talk about it because it's the news, but, I feel like incidents almost create more incidents. I think these jabs are making people lose their souls. I don't know, but I do feel like there is something going on. Like there is something spiritually that we're all experiencing. I don't know if it's some kind of like shift. I don't know if it's just a lot of angst from the past several years. I mean, you think about it too, just our political climate has really infested, is just everywhere. I've even talked about music to certain people. It was funny because I've talked about this as well, and I know music seems very odd to bring up when we're talking about mental illness and stuff like that. But I do remember reading this article that grunge and heavy metal was actually really good for people. Like it was really cathartic for someone that's like into metal to go to. They are trying to, of course they are. Someone that's like really into metal goes to a heavy metal concert and they have like a little mosh pit or they let it out. It's actually shown to be very cathartic and it helps people. But sometimes I do wonder that too. I'm like, you think about when you were a teenager, you got a lot of your angst out by like listening to music and rocking out and like having an album or a song that really touched you or really spoke to like what you were going through when you were a teenager. And now like I listen to a lot of the popular music and there's no soul to it. There's no humanity to it. It's just a bunch of like engineered sounds, a bunch of auto-tune, and then they just repeat the same few words over and over and over again. So I really do think like stuff like that has shifted a little bit too, not to mention social media. I was reading that the average teenager today spends 1 hour less a day amongst like just outside amongst other people than back in the day. For instance, like when I was a teenager, when I was a kid, we were outside playing all the time. My mom had to scream for me to come back in and eat dinner. And kids just don't grow up the same way. And then on top of that, add in just how confusing adults make it by indoctrinating kids to be little political activists at such a young age. Like being into politics is kind of stressful. I think like it kind of takes like a healthy mind and an adult to be super in or to be a super I don't know, to be a super activist takes a lot out of you. So to put all of that on little kids, it's just very sad to me. I don't see how it really gets better unless a lot of people, like in Florida, how, Ron DeSantis and a lot of people are standing up, and here in, Virginia, how a lot of the parents are standing up for their kids. I think my mind is in that space right now too, because I'm reading Abigail Schreier's Irreversible Damage, and it is just talking about how there's this big social contagion happening right now with teenage girls, where more than ever, young women are thinking that they are actually men, where they're feeling uncomfortable in their bodies. They're going through all these crazy like hormone changes, and then they have these adults coming in, or they have these social media sites or these influencers that are like, "Oh, you're probably a boy. That's what it is. You are probably a boy." I actually did a TikTok yesterday talking about Demi Lovato. So Demi Lovato, we've talked about her before. She grew up, I think she was a Disney actress, and then she had like a pop career and is pretty famous, mostly among like super youngins, super young people. But she made this big announcement that she is non-binary. I think she said non-binary, and that her new pronouns were they, them. She made this announcement last year. And then this year, just the other day, she came out and made another announcement while she was on a podcast saying, you know what, or she said, I actually have changed my pronouns back to she, her, because I'm just feeling more of a female vibe recently. My daughter's 14. She's having a really oh, wow. Kimberly said, my daughter's 14 and she's having a really tough time with all of this stuff. I highly recommend, Kimberly, Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage. It might scare you a little bit, but it'll really arm you with a lot of information and really help put things into perspective. If you haven't read that book, that is an incredible book. She really deep dives into what's happening and talks to people all over the spectrum about it. And there's a lot of stories by other parents in there, and it's so wild to me. But what Demi Lovato said, what was really alarming about what she said, is she said, okay, I switched my pronouns back because I'm just feeling more of a feminine vibe lately. Okay, several things. Number one, you are reducing womanhood down to a vibe. So it's a vibe now. Being a woman is just a vibe. To me, being a woman is a lot more than a vibe. Like, being a woman comes with a lot more than just a vibe. Believe me. So I don't like that we're reducing it to a vibe or a feeling, what is a woman? Being a woman is like however you feel. Do you feel like a woman? Or no, it's not that I feel like a woman. I am a lot of woman. Or I am a lot of woman. Sorry. I'm a whole lot of woman. Can you handle all of this woman? That's not what I meant to say. I just am a woman. I don't feel it. I just am. And what I also don't like about that, and what I also don't like about all of this like gender affirming therapy and stuff like that, is that what they're doing is we're like going back in time and all of a sudden telling sexes that you have to go with your gender stereotype. We're telling women, okay, if you're feeling more masculine, if you like more masculine things, that means you must be a boy. Or if you're a boy and you like more feminine things, that means you must be a girl. No, that's not true. You can be a girl and be super feminine. You can also be a girl and have some masculine qualities and be into a few masculine things. That's okay. To me, it's almost like the opposite of what feminism had tried to do. You can be all kinds of women. You can be a woman who likes to wear cute little dresses and do her hair, or some women wear t-shirts and don't. It's your choice. Or you can wear a t-shirt and be super girly one day, or you can go outside and in a big greasy t-shirt and, I don't know, work on a car the next day. It doesn't matter. You can do those things and still be a woman. But what else bothers me about Demi Lovato is she has so many very young, also, to me, if I am somebody that actually has gender dysphoria and knowing that people can just change their pronouns back and forth and say, I'm just feeling a little feminine today, so to me, that's a bit insulting. Because there are actually people out there who experience gender dysphoria. And all of the young girls that look up to her and listen to her and thought it was so brave of her to say, I'm now they, them. I'm non-binary. It's sad. And what's interesting too is, as I was reading this book by Abigail Schreier, there's a lot of moms in this book talking about how they're teenage, and these are very liberal moms. These are not Republican moms. These are moms that are extremely liberal, extremely open. And they say, my daughter is now saying that she's transgender, and I'm okay with that if I thought she actually was. The only issue is she has never shown any symptoms of any sort of gender dysphoria until yesterday. Until she said, I think I'm a boy. And what a lot of these parents find out is, oh, my daughter's going on these websites, or she has this friend group now, and they're all saying you must be trans. Yeah, it's a lot of peer pressure. So I'm hanging out with this friend group. All my friend groups they're all like lesbian or non-binary or trans. It's almost like it's sort of lame to be like cis now. Like there's nothing cool, there's nothing special about you if you're just cisgender. Like you're not in the cool club. Maybe you're a prude. I don't know. But it's really a shame, and it's a huge shame. And I wish women could have, or young girls especially, and now they have a lot of these teachers, and all I see are libs of TikTok. I know that not all teachers are. That's what's happening with my daughter. That's so sad. I know that all teachers are not what we see on libs of TikTok. There are good teachers out there, but you imagine being a young girl and you have all these friends that are affirming this and telling you you're so brave for coming out as trans. You have your teachers that are affirming this. You have now our politicians who are in charge are affirming this. You have media that's affirming this, and Hollywood that's affirming this, and the only person who's not affirming this is who? Your family. And it's exactly what these teachers are telling you. Your mom's just not accepting. They're not accepting. I don't know what the answer is. We didn't have this when I was a teenager, and I always knew, like, at the end of the day, I just always knew that I was a female. Imagine how much easier it would be if you just knew that you were a female and you had to figure it out within those confines. Now it's just endless. Okay, this day maybe I'm pansexual, or maybe I'm non-binary, or maybe I'm this or I'm that. How freaking confusing. There was one mom that I read about that actually, and it kind of stinks because I think this is such a great idea, but I don't know how many people would even have the means of do this, but she took her daughter out of school and started traveling with her, or they moved away. All kinds of things. And for me, it's like, okay, do you want to go by a boy name for a little bit? That's fine. Do you want to dress as a boy for a little bit? Okay, do it. See how it feels. You can explore. That's completely okay. That's what being young is all about. It's about exploring and trying different things out and figuring out who you are, right? All of those things are okay. But the issue we have now is you have adults that are pushing irreversible damage. That's why the book by Abigail Schreier is called Irreversible irreversible damage, because you are pushing irreversible damage onto these young kids that in a lot of cases will sterilize them or will mutilate their otherwise healthy bodies. And it's so sad because I don't know if you've ever been like confused or depressed, but it's always like the grass is always greener on the other side, right? If I just had that one thing, I would be happy. If I just had this one thing, I would be okay. If I change this one thing, everything else would be good. And that is absolutely never the case. And that's what I hear with a lot of these cases. You have these kids who are growing up, trying to figure it all out, feeling uncomfortable in their bodies, thinking, man, if I just did this, I would be okay. And one was really sad too, because what I've noticed with a lot of, with several of the girls that were being discussed in the book, is a lot of the girls were kind of already a little bit shy or socially awkward and didn't really feel like they fit in. And this is something that gave them a lot of attention. It made them different. It made them unique. All of a sudden, the peers that maybe didn't pay attention to them so much are like, oh my gosh, you're so brave. Now all the teachers are like, oh my gosh, you're so brave. We support you. Whatever you need, you just come to us. Oh, your mom is questioning you. Your mom doesn't support you. Oh, your dad is questioning you. He doesn't support you. When in fact, you're supposed to be questioned. And what's even more concerning is you have these gender affirming therapists now that instead of exploring the entire psyche, they hear, I might be a boy, and then all of a sudden they start pushing you down the line. Okay, let's get you on puberty blockers. Let's get you this. Let's get you that. Let's get you this consultation. Have you thought about wearing a binder? Have you thought about maybe down the road surgery? Instead of looking at the child as a whole. Okay, what's going on at home? Do you have any other mental health issues? What's your family life? What's your school life like? Do you have insecurities? Do you have anxieties? What's going on here? They never do like a comprehensive, holistic interview process or session. It's just, oh, I think I might be a boy. Okay, let's push you down the line. It's really sad. But there is good news. There is very good news. Travis Stock, a huge gender-affirming clinic in Sweden, just shut down. A lot of Europe, they're looking at their gender-affirming things for kids, and they're starting to change a lot of their ideas on that. We're a little bit behind, so I'm hoping we're right behind them. Travis Scott. I'm a very hands-on mom, very open with my daughter about everything. You have to be these days. Yeah. Yeah, Travis Stock. It's in the is it the UK? Oh, it's in London. Most push notifications that pop up on my tablet concern impending catastrophe. But last week, one news flash made my day. This is The Spectator. Glory, hallelujah, the NHS is closing the Travis Stock. A clatter of tattletale. I'm sorry, I can't do this opinion right now. Hold on, let me get this. This is more factual. Okay. The National Health Service in England announced on Thursday that it was shutting down the country's only youth gender clinic in favor of a more distributed and comprehensive network of medical care for adolescents seeking hormones and other treatments. The closure followed an external review of the Travis Stock Clinic in London, which has served thousands of transgender patients since the 1990s. The review, which is ongoing, has raised several concerns, including about long wait times, insufficient mental health support, and the surging number of young people seeking gender treatments. The overhaul of services for transgender young people in England is a part of a notable shift in medical practice across some European countries with nationalized healthcare systems. Some doctors that are concerned about the increase in numbers as well as the dearth of data on long-term safety and outcomes of medical transitions. In the United States, doctors specializing in gender care for adolescents have mixed feelings about the reforms in Europe, although many agree that more comprehensive health care for transgender youth is badly needed. As are more studies of the treatments, they worry that the changes will fuel the growing political movement in some states to ban such care entirely. How do we draw the line so that we keep care individualized while also maintaining safety standards for everyone? That's what we're trying to sort out. I wonder if Kim is still here. Have you watched if you're here, have you watched What is a Woman with your daughter? Or would she watch that? I'm just curious. I wonder what she thought. What did she think? Oh, no. Okay. So how do we draw the line so that we can keep care individualized while maintaining health safety standards for everyone? That's what we're trying to sort out, said Dr. Marcy Bowers, a gynecologic and reconstructive surgeon and the incoming president of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. Holy cow, that was a mouthful. Who is transgender? It's the people on the ground who need to make these decisions, not the people in Washington or state legislators. The NHS said current patients at the Tavistock Clinic could continue to receive care before transferring to two new hubs at children's hospitals in London and Manchester. The new clinics will expand the country's gender services while making sure children are adequately treated for autism, trauma, and mental health issues. The specialists will also carry out clinical research on gender medications. So this is good. Adequately treated for autism, trauma, and mental health issues. It was interesting, too, because as I was reading this book by Abigail Schreier, a few of the moms actually mentioned that they thought that their daughters were on the autism spectrum. But this is something, when they took them to gender-affirming therapists, this is something that wasn't discussed with the gender-affirming therapist. So it's good that making sure that they're also adequately treated for autism, trauma, and mental health issues. They will also carry out clinical research on gender medications, as they should. We don't know the long-term outcomes of this. Everything is so new. How do you know it's so safe? And that is one more layer of why it is so alarming that all of these medical professionals are pushing this so hard on young kids, because it's so new. What are the long-term effects of some of these, like, puberty blockers? There are critically important unanswered questions about the use of puberty blockers, wrote Hilary Cass, head of the external review of the country's youth gender identity services, in a letter to the head of the NHS England last week. Puberty blockers, which are largely reversible, are intended to buy younger patients time to make weighty decisions about permanent medical changes. But Dr. Cass questioned whether most adolescents prescribed these drugs were given the support to reverse course should they choose to. Tavistock received, okay, this is interesting. Listen to this. Tavistock received more than 5,000 patient referrals in 2021, up from just 250 in 2011. The types of patients seeking referrals have also shifted over the past decade. When the clinic opened, it primarily served children who were assigned male at birth. Last year, 2/3 of its patients were assigned female at birth. These are actually very similar numbers that the book Irreversible Damage came up with. So notice, when they opened in 2011, they had 250 referrals, just 250. Most of them were male at birth. 2021, 5,000 patient referrals. 2/3 of those were female at birth. That is a huge shift. The number is also similar in the United States. Back in the day, I gave you that number. It was like 0.01%, maybe 0.001%, I don't know, of the population have gender dysphoria. And most of those have historically been biologically male to female. And what they're seeing a lot now at a lot of these clinics are more female to males coming to them. So that is a huge, huge shift. It is unclear why the number of patients has surged so drastically or why transgender boys are driving the increase. Transgender advocates in Britain welcomed the changes, but emphasized that many questions still remained about how they would affect care for young people. We are optimistic, cautiously optimistic about the news, said Susie Green, chief executive of Mermaids and Advocacy Group for a transgender and gender diverse group or youth. There is a 2.5-year waiting list to be seen for your first appointment. We've seen the distress caused by young people because of that. It's probably good there's a long waiting period. But Miss Green, who has a transgender adult daughter, said that the group was concerned about whether mental health services would be prioritized over medical care. That's important too. Whether mental health services would be prioritized over medical care. Social media has too much influence on our young children. I agree. And Kim, you weren't here the other day. Actually, I'll play it for you right now. So I'm going to play you this audio. I think we pretty much get the gist of this. So basically in the UK and other parts of Europe, they are really looking at a lot of things. They're saying, okay, what are the actual long care effects of this? Are we treating these kids holistically? Are we looking at mental health, possible trauma? Are we looking at autism? Are we looking at all of these things? Should we be providing kids, like what are the long-term effects of puberty blockers, these surgeries? Why is there a huge shift in the demographics of people wanting to change over? Why is all this happening? And what is so wrong with taking a step back and asking these questions? Because now we're told anytime we bring it up or we ask these questions, you're immediately shut down as being a phobe. And that's not helping anyone. In fact, it's hurting the very kids who are questioning this stuff right now. Okay, so this was actually, this was just a short little TikTok. This was made by a young girl. She looks to be like 18 or 19. And she identifies as a leftist. And this isn't technically about transgenderism. It all started with my daughter's friends. Interesting. So this isn't just about, this isn't necessarily about transgenderism, but this is just about leftist ideology and how they view the world just in general. And she gives a very important point because what social media will do, once you start watching one video, so let's say I'm on Instagram and I look at a video of a raccoon. Instagram sees that I watched that raccoon video. So they're going to throw me every single raccoon video. Next time I go on my feed, I'm going to see nothing but raccoon videos because that's how the social media algorithms work. So maybe you have a teenage girl who's like, I'm curious about this or that. So she watches one video about this. And the next time she goes on her feed, she sees more videos and more videos. And pretty much every single time that you're on social media, you're being fed what the algorithm thinks that you want to watch, which is almost like reaffirming all of this other stuff. But this leftist kind of explains that a little bit. I also just thought it was a really interesting perspective and someone who's pretty self-aware. So I'm going to play it for you right now.
People ask me all the time why I think people on the left are angry. You know, coming from the left. I guess I'm a fairly good source to ask. There's a lot of factors at play. Cognitive dissonance, one, which if you don't know, that's the discomfort one feels from having contradicting thoughts or beliefs. Also, every issue on the left is made into an emotionally charged issue. It's all a form of some type of injustice. And if you actually believe that there's all these different injustices occurring in the world, you're going to be angry about it. But also look at the content that people are pushing out. I mean, most of the time when I see like super woke creators, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're angry, they're emotionally charged. Now imagine being locked in an algorithm on every platform, giving you all of that content. Imagine your friends, everyone in your life, being angry all the time about things that are going on in the world. You're going to be angry. And then add on top of that all the people dealing with a lot of emotional turmoil, and they might not know where to put that, so they're pushing it into politics. Just my 2 cents.
That's like permanently saved on my computer. I don't know. I think I think one thing my mom did when I was growing up, we didn't really have a lot of money because my parents got divorced when I was really young. One of the best things that that my mom did when I was young is she let me see and experience different things. Like the more I would go stay in like Pennsylvania for a month every summer, and I would stay with my uncle. I would stay with a friend I had up there, and we would travel. There's a huge storm coming. So we would travel a little bit around there. Like even when we didn't have a lot of money, my mom would try to take us like on a weekend trip. I think the more and more you can get somebody, I know this is like so hard when you have a teenager, I can only imagine, but the more and more you get someone, like whether it's someone that's like indoctrinated like this, or the more you can get them to just experience life outside of their bubble. It might not seem like you're doing stuff. It might not seem like it's super effective, or, the kid might be like, I don't want to be here. I hate this. But no matter what it is, whether it's a museum, whether it's, I don't know, something cool that they enjoy doing, a surprise, a concert, a little weekend trip, or going to the park, it doesn't have to cost money. The more you can expose someone to things outside of their bubble, I think helps too. It doesn't help all at once. It doesn't help, and it might not seem like it's doing anything, but it might plant a few seeds in there along the way so that they can see that there's a lot more out there than just their friendship circle or their bubble or their little social media circle or bubble, whatever that is. Anywho, okay, I think it's about to storm like big time. So I think I'm going to go for the day. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching. That was really fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry. I think you lost me for 73 seconds. Yes, he did fire his state attorney. All right, you all. I hope everyone has a really great weekend, a great Friday. Stay safe out there. If you're around me, we're about to get a huge storm. Anyway, I will see you all later. Bye. Oh, thank you, Kimberly. I hope everything goes really, really well.